Well, have you spoken to Trump personally about this?
I can't comment on the people I'm meeting with intimately right now.
Can neither confirm nor deny it.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'll just say that there are really good people around him that are trying to find out about this seriously and sincerely. And I think there's very promising, to me, there are very promising developments. If they can stay on track with getting the information and not be gaslit by the disinformation. Because for every person that will go in and give them the truth of what's going on, like Mr. Barber or Herrera, there'll be 10 that are actually counterintelligence and disinformation people gaslighting them. And that's the problem. And how do you have the discernment? Here's the problem. Very busy people, right? I'm busy as hell. I go 7 days a week, 20 hours a day at this point. But if you're the president or the chairman of Senate Intelligence or whatever it is, you've got 100 things a day you got to deal with. You have to have some people who are experts, who are trusted, who can drill down on this and unpack it, because it's way more complicated than anyone realizes. I mean, let's take an example of this. I mean, how wacky and complicated it is. You have one of the most famous UFO cases in history, Cash-Landrum, right? You know, that case, for those of you who don't know, it's in this book that just came out. We'll go through that in a minute. Mm-hmm. And it was considered a near crash retrieval operation in outside Houston, north of Houston. And there were 3 people, a little boy, 5-year-old boy, and his mom and his aunt, driving along a highway. And this UFO comes out, descends out of the sky, very unstable, and all kinds of stuff coming out of it. And they were slathered in radioactive waste. And they suffered severe radiation poisoning, had to be hospitalized. And that whole area was sprayed. They had to dig up and redo that road twice because of the amount of radiation. I still think there's a ton of it out there. Now, that was in the, I think, early 80s, mid 80s, something like that, 40 years ago. What that actually was, now, of course, the UFO subculture, that aliens radiated the poor little boy. Well, not so fast. So we have an Air Force intelligence guy who is the principal investigator of that event that we have debriefed, and we have his testimony. And that was an ET craft that they were studying. They could not get the energy system to work. So they foolishly put on a portable nuclear power plant on it to get it going. And it was headed east out of Nevada and was headed east, and it malfunctioned. It had a filter, some kind of circulatory filter system that ruptured and started spewing all this radioactive waste. And there were 4 human pilots on it trying to learn how this thing operated. But it was a non-human craft, yes, but the energy system and the pilots were humans trying to figure out how the thing worked. So this was one of these things that went bad. Now, you can imagine Air Force intelligence and others would love to have people think, oh, well, that was, the aliens did that to those poor people. That's one example of which there are thousands. So when they screw up like that, they're going to be happy to say, oh, the aliens did it. It's like if somebody farts and there's a baby in the room, oh, the baby farted, right? So, I'm sorry to be so crass, but the fact is that happens all the time in this subject. So you have to go to firsthand sources. Like in this case, we have the testimony of the PI, the principal investigator of that event. Now, that takes a lot of work. If you're just sort of a hobbyist on this, or you're someone in Congress who has 2 hours a week, or no, 2 hours a month to drill down on this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble very quickly, misinterpreting things. So I think the people have to insist, you're going to do this. It's a big story, biggest story in human history, frankly, and a huge national security issue. Got to do it right. Cannot do it halfway. Now, Congress so far doesn't have the tools to do that. They almost got them a little over a year ago. And there was the Senate passed a great bill that would have had an amnesty safe harbor period for these whistleblowers we have. And, I have 760 plus whistleblowers. But we went over to the House for reconciliation. It was part of the defense funding bill, the National Defense Authorization Act. It was called NDAA. It went out of the provisions for amnesty or safe harbor were unanimously passed out of Senate Intelligence. And I actually helped with the folks who were putting that together quietly behind the scenes, writing it. And so it then went over to the House, passed the Senate, not unanimously, but overwhelmingly, went to the House, and there were some people who killed it. And there was, Congressman Turner of the House Intelligence Committee and Mike Rogers of the Armed Services Committee in the House, and some other people killed that thing, ripped those provisions out, and stripped it of anything meaningful. So we then concluded, and I told Jake and other people who are, a lot of the guys I've been working with are sitting in the wings waiting for something to happen that protects them. They need legal protections because many of them have been in operations that are illegal. They need physical protection because there are wet works or assassination targeted killings that have been authorized against people. And I know he has had someone on his team killed. I've had people on my team killed over the years. So until that happens, you're out here naked. We're uncovered. Very dangerous. So for people to expect all this to get dealt with, but the government they haven't even figured out that there's lethal force used against high-value whistleblowers. Until that kind of gets through the Congress or an executive order. The president could do this with a stroke of the pen, no question. Absolutely. President has the power to authorize full investigation and DOJ to provide immunity or amnesty. In other words, they'd have to come clean on everything, right? But that's what we're recommending because there's some very high-value whistleblowers who approached us who want to do it. But right now, we're not protecting them. And these people are patriotic. Like Jake and his guys are very patriotic.